It can convey continuity of not just interest, but of service, of understanding.
For decades, the British royal family has guarded its private estates with near sacred secrecy, but when those boundaries are crossed, the consequences can be swift and shocking. This time, the spotlight turns to Princess Anne, known for her no-nonsense resolve, and Laura Lopes, whose alleged trespass at Balmoral has ignited a storm. What really happened on those guarded grounds? And why did it escalate all the way to court? The truth may be far more explosive than anyone expected. And do you really believe Camilla and her children will relent on making similar efforts in the future? Let us know in the comments. To help us create more videos, please subscribe. A silent power shift inside the palace. Behind the carefully maintained image of harmony, a quieter, more serious tension has been building within the royal household, one that rarely shows itself in public, yet carries significant weight behind palace walls. At the heart of this unfolding situation is Princess Anne, a woman whose reputation has never been built on spectacle, but on consistency, discipline, and an unwavering sense of duty. Unlike others who may attract attention through charm or controversy, Anne has long stood apart. She is known for her no-nonsense approach to royal life, guided by a deep respect for tradition and responsibility. While the public gaze remained fixed on the evolving identity of the monarchy under King Charles III, Anne's attention was reportedly directed elsewhere, towards subtle but meaningful shifts happening within the institution itself. What she observed, according to insiders, was not a dramatic scandal or an obvious crisis. Instead, it was something quieter, yet potentially more dangerous, a gradual softening of the lines that separate personal privilege from royal duty. In a system built on structure, hierarchy, and clearly defined roles, even small changes in these boundaries can carry long-term consequences. To Anne, this wasn't just a matter of preference, it was a question of principle. The monarchy, in her view, survives not because of popularity alone, but because of discipline, restraint, and a clear understanding of what it means to serve. When those lines begin to blur, the entire foundation risks becoming unstable. What makes this moment particularly striking is not the presence of conflict, but the way it has reportedly been handled. There have been no public confrontations, no dramatic statements, and no visible signs of disagreement. Instead, Anne's response is said to have been calculated, deliberate, and highly controlled, reflecting her personality and her long-standing approach to challenges. Rather than engaging in open disputes, she is believed to have taken action internally, working within the system to restore clarity where she felt it was fading. This approach, while less visible, can often be more powerful. It avoids unnecessary attention while ensuring that the necessary adjustments are made. Those familiar with royal operations suggest that Anne's actions were not about asserting dominance, but about reinforcing structure. By quietly addressing issues of access, entitlement, and responsibility, she may have been aiming to protect the integrity of the institution rather than challenge any individual directly. In many ways, this reflects a deeper philosophy, one that sees leadership not as loud or performative, but as steady and corrective. Anne's strength has always been her ability to act without seeking recognition, to influence without creating chaos. It is this quiet authority that makes her role in this situation so significant. The phrase "explosive moment" might suggest noise, conflict, or public fallout. Yet here, the intensity lies in precision. Every move, every decision is said to have been carefully measured, designed to bring balance without drawing attention. It is a reminder that not all power is visible, and that some of the most impactful changes happen behind closed doors. As the monarchy continues to adapt to a modern world, tensions like these are perhaps inevitable. Balancing tradition with change is never simple, and differing perspectives on how that balance should be achieved can create friction. But it is in these moments that figures like Princess Anne become particularly important. She represents continuity in its most disciplined form, a living example of what the monarchy has been, and perhaps what it must remain if it is to endure. While others may focus on evolution and reinvention, Anne's focus appears to be on preservation through structure. And so, beneath the calm surface presented to the world, a quiet recalibration may already be underway, one led not by noise or confrontation, but by clarity, restraint, and a firm belief that some lines, once crossed, must be carefully redrawn. What was the antecedent of the pitiful situation? How did it all begin? What exactly transpired? Let's delve into the details of how everything all started. The asset transfers that triggered a storm. At the center of the growing tension is Queen Camilla, and a series of reported financial decisions that have stirred quiet but serious concern within royal circles. These decisions involve the movement of highly valuable private assets, most notably Ray Mill House, into arrangements that appear to favor her children, Tom Parker Bowles and Laura Lopes. At first glance, the situation seems simple, even understandable. A mother, mindful of the future, taking deliberate steps to secure stability for her children. There is nothing unusual about a parent wanting to protect what they have built and ensure it benefits their family. In ordinary circumstances, such actions would pass without question, perhaps even earn quiet admiration. But within the framework of royalty, nothing is ever just ordinary. Every decision carries weight, and every action is measured not only by intention, but by implication. Timing, structure, and perception matter deeply. What might appear to be a private family arrangement can quickly take on wider meaning when placed under the lens of public responsibility. This is where the unease begins. Questions started to surface, not loudly but persistently. Were these transfers entirely personal, or did they in any way intersect with royal resources? Was there a clear and firm boundary between what belongs to the individual and what is held even indirectly in trust for the institution? And perhaps most importantly, were these decisions made with full transparency, in a way that protects the credibility of the crown? Such questions are not necessarily accusations, but in a system built on tradition and accountability, even the appearance of blurred lines can be enough to trigger concern. Enter Princess Anne, a figure widely regarded for her discipline, discretion, and unwavering sense of duty. Where others may have seen a personal financial arrangement, she reportedly viewed the matter through a very different lens. For Princess Anne, this was not simply about a house, or even about inheritance planning. It was about safeguarding principles that underpin the monarchy itself. In her perspective, the issue extended beyond family and into the realm of constitutional responsibility. Her response, as described in reports, was firm and methodical. Rather than allowing the matter to remain in the shadows of private discussion, she is said to have pushed for formal scrutiny. This included calls for detailed audits, the temporary freezing of certain financial movements, and a demand for full transparency in how assets were handled and allocated. Such actions suggest a shift in how the situation is understood. What began as a seemingly personal decision was reframed as a matter of institutional integrity. The focus moved from what was done to what it represents. Because in a monarchy, perception is power. If the public begins to question whether private interests are benefiting from positions of influence, trust can erode, slowly but significantly. And for an institution that relies heavily on public confidence, even small doubts can carry long-term consequences. Princess Anne's reported position points to a deeper truth. In the royal system, accountability is never optional. It is a duty. Every decision and action must pass not only legal checks, but also moral judgment. Nothing is allowed to slip through unnoticed or excused because of status. In the end, this matter is about more than land, property, or inheritance. It reflects the clear boundary between personal privilege and public responsibility. That boundary must always stay firm and easy to see. When that line becomes blurred, even slightly, it stops being just a private family issue. It turns into something bigger, a test of values, fairness, and principle that the public has every right to question and understand clearly and openly. Does the royal family seem to overlook Laura's actions? Why did it seem so huge? Let's dive into the details of how Balmoral Castle became the monarchy's soul. The Balmoral Castle. Few places in the royal world hold as much quiet power, memory, and meaning as Balmoral Castle. It is not just a beautiful estate tucked away in the Scottish Highlands. It is a symbol of continuity, identity, and deeply rooted tradition. When Prince Albert purchased it for Queen Victoria, he was not merely acquiring land. He was creating a private world for the monarchy, one that would stand apart from the formalities and pressures of public life. Over the generations, Balmoral evolved into something sacred within royal circles. It became a retreat where monarchs could breathe, reflect, and simply be human. It is where stories were shared, decisions quietly shaped, and family bonds strengthened away from the eyes of the world. Because of this, any change to how Balmoral is treated is never seen as minor. It carries emotional and symbolic consequences. For Princess Anne, this meaning runs especially deep. Known for her strong sense of duty and respect for tradition, she views Balmoral not as a flexible asset, but as a protected inheritance. To her, it represents a line that should not be blurred, a boundary between what is private and sacred and what is open and shared. So when reports began to circulate suggesting that Camilla Parker Bowles's family might be gaining more informal access to the estate, it raised serious concern. The idea was not just about visitors or hospitality, it was about what that access represented. To Anne, it signaled a subtle but significant shift, Balmoral being treated less like a royal sanctuary and more like a general family retreat. That distinction mattered deeply. From Anne's perspective, this was not simply a matter of preference or family dynamics. It touched the very core of royal values. Balmoral has always stood for exclusivity in the sense of purpose, not privilege. It is not meant to be a place where access expands based on personal relationships or evolving family ties. Instead, it is a space defined by history, discipline, and a shared understanding of its importance. Her response, therefore, was not loud or dramatic, but it was unmistakably firm. Rather than engaging in public disagreement or emotional confrontation, Anne chose a quieter, more strategic path. Measures were introduced to carefully control and limit access. Existing protocols, some of which may have grown relaxed over time, were reviewed and reinforced. Every step taken was deliberate, calculated, and rooted in principle rather than impulse. There were no grand announcements, no direct criticisms, no visible conflict. Yet the message was clear to those who understood the language of royal conduct. By tightening control over Balmoral, Anne was doing more than managing logistics. She was drawing a line. She was reaffirming that certain institutions within the monarchy are not open to reinterpretation. They are not shaped by convenience or changing relationships. They are preserved through consistency, discipline, and respect for what they represent. In essence, Balmoral was being symbolically reclaimed, not from any individual, but from a shift in mindset. Anne's actions served as a reminder that heritage is not something to be casually shared or gradually diluted. It is something to be protected, even when doing so requires difficult decisions or quiet resistance. Balmoral, in her view, is not a privilege that can be extended at will. It is a legacy that must be guarded with intention. And in that silent but powerful stance, she reinforced a truth that often goes unspoken. Some traditions endure not because they are defended loudly, but because they are upheld firmly, through action, clarity, and an unshakable sense of responsibility. Does Laura have any close bond with the royal family? Could her absence from the spotlight be the reason for the action? Let's dig into the details of the relationship Camilla's children shares with the royal family. Close to the crown, far from the spotlight. When King Charles III finally ascended the throne, public attention didn't settle on him alone. It naturally spread to those closest to him, especially his wife, Queen Camilla, and the family she brought into the royal fold. Among those quietly drawn into renewed curiosity were her two children from her previous marriage, Laura Lopes and Tom Parker Bowles. Long before the crown came into the picture, Laura and Tom were born into the marriage between Camilla and Andrew Parker Bowles. Their upbringing was largely separate from royal expectations, rooted instead in a more conventional aristocratic life. However, everything shifted in 2005 when their mother married Charles. That union quietly redrew family lines, making Laura and Tom step-siblings to Prince William and Prince Harry, two of the most recognized figures in the modern monarchy. Despite this close connection to the heart of the royal family, Laura and Tom have remained notably distant from its formal structure. Unlike William and Harry, who were born into clearly defined royal roles, Camilla's children have never been given official titles, responsibilities, or ceremonial duties. This absence of formal attachment has shaped the way they live and how the public sees them. According to Thomas Mace Archer Mills, founder of the British Monarch Society, this distinction is not accidental. He once explained that Laura and Tom haven't actually built any trade-off from their relationship with the crown. In simpler terms, they have not used their proximity to royalty as a stepping stone for influence, privilege, or public roles within the monarchy. Instead, they have remained firmly grounded in their own independent paths. This deliberate separation has given them something quite rare in royal circles: privacy. While senior royals often live under constant media scrutiny, every movement analyzed and every decision debated, Laura and Tom have enjoyed a quieter existence. They are not expected to attend state functions, represent the crown, or participate in official engagements. As a result, they have largely avoided the intense spotlight that follows the core royal family. Tom Parker Bowles, for instance, has carved out a name for himself in the world of food and writing. He is a respected food critic and author, known more for his culinary expertise than his royal connections. Laura Lopes, on the other hand, has pursued a creative path, building a career in the art world. Their professional identities stand on their own merit, rather than being defined by their mother's royal status. What makes their story particularly intriguing is this balance between proximity and distance. They are close enough to royalty to be part of its inner circle, yet far enough removed to live on their own terms. It's a position that offers both privilege and freedom, access without obligation, connection without constant exposure. In many ways, their lives highlight a subtle but important evolution within the modern monarchy. Not everyone linked to the royal family is expected to play a public role. Some, like Laura and Tom, exist on the edges, connected by family, but not bound by duty. And perhaps that is exactly why they continue to capture public curiosity. In a world where royal lives are often defined by tradition, protocol, and visibility, theirs stands out as something different: quiet, independent, and intentionally out of the spotlight. Does Laura's actions expose the fractures in the royal family? What effect does the internal shift have on the royal family? Let's find out. From inner circle to outer edge. The ripple effects of this internal shift have not stayed hidden behind palace walls. They have quietly extended into personal lives, reshaping relationships and redefining what it means to belong. What once felt stable and understood now carries a sense of uncertainty. For Tom Parker Bowles and Laura Lopes, this change has been especially noticeable. They were once seen as natural parts of a modern, blended royal family, figures who, while not central, were comfortably included. Now that sense of ease appears to be fading, replaced by a distance that feels both unexpected and difficult to overlook. What makes this shift more striking is how clearly it has shown itself in everyday realities. Access that once seemed routine, security permissions, entry into certain spaces, invitations to private gatherings, has reportedly been reduced or removed. These are not just small procedural changes, they carry deeper meaning. They suggest a quiet but firm redefinition of who is considered part of the inner circle. For Tom and Laura, the experience has been described as both sudden and sobering, like watching a familiar door slowly close, without noise, but with unmistakable finality. This development points to a larger tension within the royal system itself. The monarchy has always walked a careful line between preserving tradition and adapting to modern expectations. At one point, the presence of Tom and Laura seemed to reflect a more flexible, contemporary image, one that acknowledged blended families and evolving social realities. Their inclusion sent a subtle message that the institution could grow, even if slowly. Now, however, the tone appears to be changing. The environment feels more structured, more formal, and perhaps less open to arrangements that do not fully align with long-standing customs. At the center of this situation stands Camilla Parker Bowles, whose personal journey has been anything but simple. For many years, she lived under intense public scrutiny, facing criticism and doubt from both the media and the public. Her path to becoming queen was not smooth or guaranteed. It required patience, resilience, and a quiet strength that allowed her to endure even when acceptance seemed distant. Standing beside King Charles III was not just about companionship. It was about gradually finding her place within one of the most traditional institutions in the world. Now, however, the challenge she faces seems to come from a different direction. It is no longer about winning public approval. It is about navigating the internal boundaries of the system she worked so hard to belong to. The influence she appeared to be building over time, subtle yet steady, now seems to be carefully controlled. There is a sense that invisible lines have been drawn, limiting how far that influence can reach, especially when it involves those closest to her. It is a quiet restraint, not openly declared, but clearly felt. This moment goes beyond administrative decisions or internal restructuring. It touches on deeper questions of identity and belonging. What does it truly mean to be part of a family like this? Is that status permanent, or can it shift with time and circumstance? The situation highlights how delicate acceptance can be within such a setting. It is not always fixed. It can change, sometimes without warning, leaving even those who once felt secure unsure of where they stand. For those observing from the outside, this offers a rare look into the more human side of royal life. Behind the ceremonies, the formal appearances, and the carefully managed image lies a world shaped by emotions, relationships, and unspoken rules. It reminds us that even within institutions built on tradition, there are personal struggles, moments of adjustment, uncertainty, and quiet tension. What stands out most is the contrast between past and present. There was a time when inclusion seemed to be growing, when the idea of a blended royal family felt possible, even promising. Now, the atmosphere feels more cautious, more defined by separation than connection. For Tom and Laura, this is a period of adjustment, a shift from familiarity to distance. For Camilla, it may represent one of the most challenging phases of her journey, a reminder that in such a world, belonging is rarely absolute, and influence, no matter how carefully built, can remain fragile. What position did the monarchy take on the whole situation? Will it stand the test of time? Let's take a look at how the crown eventually asserts itself. Duty over desire. At the very heart of this quiet but growing tension stands King Charles III, a man carrying far more than the visible weight of a crown. Beyond the ceremonies and public appearances lies a deeper, more private struggle. He is not only leading a centuries-old institution, he is also navigating serious health concerns, all while trying to stay true to a vision he has held for decades. What makes his situation especially complicated is that this is not simply about rules or royal procedure. It is personal, deeply so. He finds himself pulled in two different directions. Between his desire to shape a monarchy that feels modern and connected to people, and the powerful traditions that have defined it for generations. For many years, King Charles has shown clear signs that he wants change. He has imagined a monarchy that feels closer to everyday life, less distant, more human, and more in tune with a rapidly changing world. His approach suggests openness, flexibility, and a willingness to adapt. But such ideas do not exist in a vacuum. They meet resistance, and not from outsiders, but from those closest to him. Within the royal family itself, there are strong voices that believe the monarchy's strength lies in its consistency, its discipline, and its refusal to bend too easily. Among those voices, none stands firmer than Princess Anne. Known for her no-nonsense attitude, her deep respect for tradition, and her lifelong dedication to duty, she represents the very backbone of the institution. Where King Charles may see the need for careful change, Princess Anne sees the importance of holding the line. To her, the monarchy is not something to be reshaped according to personal ideas, no matter how well-meaning. It is something to be protected, carefully, steadily, and without compromise. Although there has been no official announcement, the effects of this quiet disagreement are already beginning to show. The monarchy appears more structured now, more defined in its boundaries. The expectations are clearer: who plays what role, what is acceptable, and where the limits lie. There is a noticeable shift away from personal considerations and toward a stronger focus on duty, responsibility, and order. It is not a loud or dramatic transformation, but it is meaningful. Without a single public declaration, the institution seems to have made its choice. Stability comes first. Yet this moment is about far more than a difference of opinion between a brother and sister. It offers a rare glimpse into how the monarchy truly functions beneath its polished surface. Behind the pageantry and public smiles is a system that protects itself with great care, even if that protection comes at a personal cost to those within it. In this situation, Princess Anne's steady and unwavering stance speaks volumes, not through speeches or confrontation, but through consistent action. Her position sends a message that is both simple and powerful. The crown is not personal property. It does not belong to one individual to shape as they wish. Instead, it is a responsibility, one that must be preserved, guarded, and eventually handed over, unchanged in its core purpose. It is not about personal legacy, but about continuity. It is about ensuring that what has stood for centuries continues to stand, no matter the pressures of the present. This way of thinking removes emotion from the center of decision-making and places duty firmly in its place. It reminds everyone involved that within the monarchy, personal feelings, even strong ones, must sometimes be set aside. In a normal family, such an approach might feel cold or even unfair, but within an institution like this, it is often seen as necessary for survival. What we are witnessing, then, is not simply conflict, it is control. It is the delicate act of balancing change with tradition, of allowing room for evolution while ensuring that the foundation remains unshaken. It is a quiet but determined effort to keep the monarchy steady, even when those inside it may feel the pressure. Perhaps the most striking part of all this is the silence. There are no public arguments, no visible clashes, no dramatic headlines revealing what is said behind closed doors. Instead, everything unfolds quietly, through decisions, through actions, and through subtle shifts in direction. Yet, despite this silence, the impact is clear and undeniable. In the end, this episode is not about winners or losers. It is not a story of one side defeating the other. Rather, it is a powerful reminder of what life within the monarchy demands: self-control, discipline, and above all, a willingness to place duty above personal desire. Because at its core, this is the true story, not one of conflict or division, but of preservation, responsibility, and the quiet, unending weight of a role that allows little rest and even less room for self. So, what do you think about the monarchy's position on? Do you think the monarchy's position will offer a lasting solution? We'd love to hear your opinions in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.